What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 457 here today of AskGSM for Wednesday, August 31st, 2022. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far and preparing for the weekend ahead. That will be Clash of the Castle, NXT and NXT UK Worlds Collide, and AEW All Out. All in the span of 24, 36 hours, whatever it's going to be. It's going to be a crazy weekend in a good way because all events should be great, especially based off the updated card for NXT Worlds Collide. As of last night, the matches they continue to add to All Out, and what we already know for Clash of the Castle on Saturday. So I'm super stoked. Today is the final day of summer, in my opinion. Not literally. Technically, the last day of summer is in September, the 21st, 22nd, whatever. I constitute summer as June 1st to August 31st. So to me, today's the last day of summer. Let's enjoy it by answering your questions from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube here on #today. So if you want to send in a question to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. First question comes from Micah Does It from YouTube. Their first question was, should Thunder Rosa go to WWE, and if she did, would she be a big star? I think so. I don't think she should go to WWE anytime soon. I know her current booking isn't exactly ideal. She had a lot of good matches as as AEW Women's World Champion with Jamie Hayter. Even the Nyla Rose match was fine. The Toni Storm match of Forbidden Door, the match she had on Dynamite with the woman whose name escapes me from Japan, that was a really good match as well. She's had a lot of really good matches as champion. The division itself is the issue. It's not even the booking of Thunder or Tony or really anyone in particular. It's the entire division, as they've ranted about before, that receives little to no focus. So at some point, the tide will begin to turn, and we will see more talent from AEW jump ship either back to WWE or go to WWE for the first time. And when I say back to WWE, I'm talking Toni Storm potentially. I'm talking Athena, formerly known as Ember Moon, maybe even Ruby Soho. Honestly, if you were to ask me, who would of those four women, who do I want to see go back to WWE in the immediate future if they could? It would be Ruby Soho. Ruby Soho has done absolutely nothing in AEW. She's gotten over, and I think the music is great. She looks like a star, and she can go in the ring, but her booking has been fucking awful. And I don't know if she's quite damaged goods yet. I got the sense that she was coming out of Double or Nothing when she failed again to win a championship. At that point, it was the Women's Owen Hart Cup against Britt Baker. She lost to Britt twice in high-stakes situations. And she really hasn't done anything else. I know she's currently feuding with Ty Conti or Ty Mello, whatever, and Anna Jay. Who gives a fuck? I would rather see her go back to WWE, especially with Liv Morgan being a much bigger star now. Either they can feud or, reunite as the Riot Squad, whatever. I think that would be really cool. With, Thunder Rosa, there's still more for her to do. She was just champion for many months up until recently. She was champion since March. She had a lot of good matches. So, again, Britt Baker, honestly, if her current boyfriend wasn't in AEW and she wasn't their top featured star, I would say, yeah, she's someone in the immediate future I would like to see go over to WWE because she's another one that's done all that there is to do in AEW. Just because she was champion for over a year, she's faced a lot of their talent. What more is there for her to do there? That being said, Thunder Rosa, not quite yet. At some point, if they let her keep the name and presented her as a star, I think she would definitely be a big star there. It would take a lot for a female star to go to WWE under Triple H, not be successful if they have the talent to make it in WWE. So just my opinion. I know they were going to originally hire her in WWE as a referee a few years ago. That to me is fucking ridiculous. And I think that was already when she was an established talent in the industry, maybe just in the NWA, maybe before then, but even still, she had a lot of talent. For them to just, relegate her to a referee spot would have been ridiculous. So hopefully they now realize her talent, having seen what she's done in AEW, and bring her in as a big star. Maybe not anytime soon, but at some point down the road. Micah does its second question. It looks like we're getting a feud between Gargano and Austin Theory. After that feud, who should feud with Gargano next? I don't know. I mean, it would be cool if he beats Theory, and that feud can go either way. I'm not really sure if anyone has to come out on the winning end decisively, or if it could just end after 2 matches. It's 1 win apiece. Not really sure how exactly that's going to work. They always have the mindset of, we can beat Theory it's okay because he has the Money in the Bank briefcase. I still don't agree with that mindset. But listen, if Gargano beats Theory and Theory cashes in at some point, he could cash in on Saturday. I really hope he doesn't. I don't think he will. But it would be cool if Gargano beat Theory and then Theory becomes champion at some point, preferably around WrestleMania season after Mania, and then he cashes in. You can go back to Gargano and Theory as a pay-per-view match, if not only just on Raw, whatever. Hopefully by that point, Gargano's a bigger star, as is Theory, and you can do that match on pay-per-view for the World Championship. Gargano may not win, and that's fine, but that's what I would do. Beyond Theory, who else can he feud with next? Can he get involved in the, Ciampa stuff with The Miz and maybe rescue Ciampa from The Miz? I wouldn't mind seeing that. I know people are still saying, keep Ciampa and Gargano apart. I mean, they're going to interact eventually. I think people are saying it shouldn't be anytime soon. And I understand that. I'd be fine with that. I would also be completely fine with them reuniting anytime soon because them in the tag team division would be amazing. Miz and Ciampa work well together, but I do think ultimately another DIY reunion before Ciampa, gets to the point where they don't know how much longer he's going to be around. He doesn't know how much longer he can be around for. He's mentioned before he can go for another few years, but what if he gets hurt? So I would do it on the sooner side personally, before it's too late. That's what I would do if it wasn't that. Maybe the United States Championship picture. Him and Rollins at some point would be fucking great. Gargano and Rollins as a feud would be awesome. Maybe not his next feud after Theory, but that would be a great direction to go in ultimately. Again, him chasing the Intercontinental Championship, depending on what brand he ends up on coming out of the draft, which is, I think, happening after Mania at this point, which I'm in full favor of personally. But there's that. There is the United States Championship I mentioned. Other heels on Raw he can feud with. Him and Miz would be great. So again, you have that Ciampa connection. Miz would probably be next if I had to choose. I don't know if I would jump into Rollins quite yet, but probably the Miz. Other heels on the show: Miz, Theory, Ziggler's a face now, Lashley's a face, AJ's a face, Dexter's a face. I'm not quite sure. I'm not really sure, but I would probably say The Miz, and you can get that Ciampa connection, as I mentioned, in there as well. We go to the Facebook questions from Noel. Their first question was, when it's all said and done, would you rank Roman, or where would you rank Roman's championship reign? I was thinking about this yesterday, and I put this in a tweet. I think it's hard to not put Roman's world championship, his world championship reign up there as among the greatest world championship reigns of all time in WWE. And not just because it's 2 years. I mean, that is a big factor. I mean, how often is it you see a 2-year-long world title reign in WWE where it's defended regularly? I know he's been on a part-time schedule since WrestleMania, but he appears at least a couple of times a month on TV. It's not like Walter. Walter's reign was amazing, don't get me wrong. He was champion for well over 2 years, 2 years and 4 months, I think exactly over 4 months. But he wasn't on the main roster. There was also a pandemic there as well that ate up a good chunk of his championship reign in 2020. So I would put Roman's reign over that personally. Roman has had banger after banger, though. I mean, just doing the math in my head, I think he's had around 23 championship defenses televised from the many matches with Brock. And the first one was good. The second one was fine. It was probably the weakest of the three. The third one was terrific. One of the best matches I've seen all year. Brock and Roman at SummerSlam. Even some of the matches he had on TV with Rey Mysterio inside Hell in a Cell. A really good match. I remember the Braun match on SmackDown shortly after he won the championship 2 years ago being good. The Jey Uso matches were outstanding. The Kevin Owens matches were fantastic. The main events of WrestleMania specifically, or maybe not the Brock one, but the first main event that he had at WrestleMania as champion. Him, Edge, and Bryan. Tremendous triple threat. One of my favorite WrestleMania matches in recent memory. The matches with Daniel Bryan. Specifically on SmackDown, Bryan's final match in WWE. Tremendous. The Cesaro match, a WrestleMania Backlash. Excellent. The John Cena match I thoroughly enjoyed. The Finn Balor matches were good. Could have been better, but they were fine. Those are most of them. The Sami Zayn match was 15 seconds. The Goldberg match was exactly what it needed to be. The Riddle match on SmackDown recently, really, really good. The Rollins match at the Royal Rumble was excellent. So, as you can see, he's had a very good reign. The character development from when he won it up until now has been awesome. You can kind of say he peaked at WrestleMania by becoming an undisputed champion. We really haven't seen much development within the bloodline since then, but the whole story with Brock was great. The matches have been great. Unifying with the Usos has been great. Everything about this reign has been good, aside from the fact that it's been a lot less frequent championship defenses since Mania due to his new part-time schedule. Beyond that, the guy's been on fire since he won the championship 2 years ago, and undoubtedly one of the biggest stars in all of wrestling, if not the biggest star currently. So I would have to put it up there as one of the greatest championship reigns of all time. The greatest, I don't know about that. I mean, it's all subjective, but where do you rank Bruno's reigns? I mean, they lasted forever, but how many of those matches do you and I remember? I mean, I didn't grow up then, so I can't say. But he did, with his reigns, put WWE on the map, made it the successful promotion it is today. Without Bruno, we probably wouldn't be where we are today with professional wrestling in the Northeast area, in America, in the world in general. So it's hard to say. The Hogan reign would probably be the greatest of all time, specifically that first one. When was it? When he won it in 84 and lost it in 88, that first 4-year reign from Hogan, that would probably be the greatest reign of all time because he held it through the first couple of WrestleManias and he had a lot of, maybe not great matches, but the match with Andre ranks up there as one of the most memorable matches of all time from WrestleMania 3. His second reign was also good. His feuds with Randy Savage and the Warrior, dropping it to Warrior at that point, and yeah, he had a lot of championship reigns. I mean, his would probably rank up there as well among the greatest of all time. And, Punk's, where would you rank that one? That would probably be in the top 10 from 2011 to 2013, a really good reign. I say Roman's is in that top 5 category. To me, it's hard to not put his reign in the top 5 greatest championship reigns of all time. Now, you can say, who are the greatest champions of all time? You might say Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm talking specific reigns here. Steve Austin did not have many great lengthy reigns because it was the Attitude Era. A lot of people did not hold championships for more than 2 or 3 months. Now, Austin did have that one really long reign, like a 6-month stretch from Mania 17 up until like September of 2001. You could probably put that one high up there, although the heel run wasn't what it could have been. It was the wrong timing for it. That's a whole other discussion. Bottom line, I would put Roman's reign up there among the greatest reigns in WWE history. And that's not even just me speaking as someone who's enjoyed it, but I'm not really sure. It's not even like, if you disagree, what else would you put up there? Hogan's, I get. Bruno, I understand. What one Rock reign was better than any reign than this reign that Roman is having currently? Any one Rock reign? I can't think of any. Maybe Steve Austin, but I would still not put any of his reigns over Roman's currently. Obviously, it was a much hotter period back in the 2000s and late 90s when they were champion. I get it, with much more elite competition. But if you take in every factor, the promos, the length, the matches, the amount of defenses he's had as champion, the presence on the show that he's had on SmackDown specifically carrying that brand for 2 years now, I honestly can't think of many other people that would fall under that category. John Cena's reigns, I guess you can put up there, specifically the one probably from whenever he won it in 06 through 07 when he had to vacate it due to injury. You could probably put that reign in there as well. Punk's, as I mentioned, from 2011 to 2013. And even those, I would put Roman's reign over those. So it is a great question. I still put it in the top 5 personally. I would really have to think about it. But for anyone who disagrees, what would you put above that? I can't imagine you can think of a 2-month run that was better than Roman's 2-year run. If Roman was champion for 2 years and had 5 title defenses, that's a different question. But he's faced a lot of different people and has been consistently featured as the focal point on every pay-per-view, which Punk was not, which is why I put Roman's reign over Punk's. And Cena had a great run, but Roman has been champion for longer and has had better matches than Cena did when he was WWE champion from 06 to 07. So, again, you can have a different argument about who the greatest champions are in general. Who's had more prolific championships runs? Probably John Cena more so than Roman Reigns. For one individual reign, it would probably be this one in the top 5, if not the top 3. And anyone who disagrees, I would love for someone to find out which ones would be better than this. Bruno, Hogan, yes, I get it. Beyond those, what one reign has been better world championship reigns in WWE? You got to put this at the top of the list. Maybe not number 1, I get it. But towards the top, to me, it's undisputable. We move on to their next question here. Thoughts on the whole Thunder Rosa backstage incident, and do you think we're getting a WCW 2.0 downfall or not? No, I don't think this is the AEW tipping point as far as it being WCW 2.0. This is their downfall. No, it's just a lot of controversy happening at once. The Punk and Moxley stuff is just a fucking mess. We'll find out what they have in store tonight and it all out. We have to see that play out a little bit more. I'm not a fan of it, but we'll see where it goes. I can't fully judge it quite yet. My initial thoughts is that I did not like what they did last week, but again, we'll see where it goes. As far as the actual stuff happening behind the scenes, Thunder Rosa losing the championship or, having an interim champion crown, whatever, her injury sucks. I think you're specifically referencing the Britt Baker, drama, them not liking each other. They got to figure that shit out so they can work with each other. I mean, people don't have to be best friends, I get it, but you can't have drama in your locker room. And I guess some of it stemmed from Thunder Rosa breaking Jamie Hayter's nose recently at Battle of the Belts 3. Obviously, I would assume that was an accident. Thunder Rosa is very confrontational, straightforward, honest. I could see why some people may not like that, but they're not going to be best friends, but it sounds like they have heat with each other or just not on the same page, and they got to smooth that out a little bit or at least be able to work with each other. The Eddie Kingston and Sammy Guevara whole thing was a fucking mess. I mean, Eddie Kingston can be offended by whatever he wants. I am full Eddie Kingston in this situation. I kind of understood where Sammy was coming from when he said, he didn't clear it with me that he didn't want his weight to be mentioned or whatever in my promo. Okay, but if Eddie Kingston's all pissed off and he's yelling at you, you would think he'd be a bit more remorseful than him smiling at Eddie Kingston, which then would warrant, in my opinion, Eddie Kingston pie-facing him backstage. Now, you gotta be professional, you can't put your hands on people. I don't blame Eddie Kingston morally. Professionally, you probably can't do that, but Sammy Guevara sounds like a little shit, so I can't blame the guy for what he did, that being Eddie Kingston. You got the heat with Punk and Paige and whatever else the fuck is going on here. I don't think Punk's going anywhere. I don't think he hates working there. I think that whole thing was overblown. There's definitely some truth to it, but it's only coming from one side. From the side that was complaining about Punk. Probably someone within the Elite, probably Adam Page, because they're all buddy-buddy with Dave Meltzer. Okay. They also don't like each other, but tough shit. They're grown men, they gotta work it out. The real issue here is that Tony Khan has got to put his fucking foot down and say, listen, the inmates cannot run the asylum. We said this last week here on the show and on WrestleRant Radio and whatever. It's a case of the boss having to take control and making sure it doesn't get out of control, doesn't get out of hand any further than it already has. So I don't think AEW is in the mud by any means, that their promotion sucks and the booking's awful and it's a mess backstage. It is a mess backstage, but it's a lot of different incidents happening at once. If it was just one isolated incident, that would be one thing, but there's a lot of drama, happening at once. And we mentioned it last week. I think it was John Ritland who asked me, how would you fix that? And I said they have to address it literally as soon as I finished recording and put up the video. It was reported from Fightful they were having a talent meeting backstage last week at Dynamite. And so that's the thing. I'm glad they did that. I don't know how much was actually accomplished, how much of the issues were actually addressed, but they had a talent meeting, and that's what you have to do. You have to have Tony Khan, and I guess Jericho spoke, and Omega. That's great. Tony Khan's the fucking boss. He's the one that has to show you cannot take advantage of me, and we're not going to let you do whatever the fuck you want here. Like, he's the boss, he's the head honcho. Not to say that stuff doesn't happen in WWE, but it doesn't get all out of control as it has all at once with AEW lately. So they got to fix that shit, get everything on the same page, and figure it out. Continue to address it and attempt to fix it. Again, people don't have to love working with each other, I get it. But they have to at least work well enough with each other to where there's not these reports about chaos backstage and maybe not uncertainty, but all this bullshit about people being dramatic and talking shit about each other, not being adults. I mean, that's wrestling in a nutshell. I get it. But again, it has to be kept to a minimum. The amount of stories that came out about AEW backstage environment in the last 2 weeks is just fucking embarrassing. So as long as they can take control of it and continue to kind of, maybe not ignore it, because I feel like that's what's happened before, where this shit has happened for sure in the last 2 years, but they'll either not acknowledge it or just move on from it as if nothing really happened. You can't do that either. You have to fucking squash it while you can and move on. And I'm hoping that's what they do. Moving on to the Twitter questions. Let's see. First one being at Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine. Their first question was, I know you were busy this weekend, but did you get a chance to catch up on NWA 74? If so, what did you think? I personally thought it was a mess with way too many matches, like 30, and the empty seats were not a good look either. So, yeah, I was gone most of the weekend, so I did not watch either night live. I only just caught up on night 1 yesterday. I started it Monday, finished it Tuesday. I still have to watch night 2. So here's my thing. I won't go on a deep rant about this because I'm sure a lot of you either don't watch NWA, don't give a fuck about NWA 74, whatever. First of all, I'm glad you watched it, John, to kind of get a feel for what the product is now. I mean, we spoke in depth over DMs last year about how you're not going to want to review it anymore, and I can't blame you. The weekly product is so fucking abysmal. And I'm the type of person to where if I start reviewing something and I need to keep up with it, and it's just out of habit, like the OCD in me will not stop watching a show even if it's gotten really, really bad. I need to see it through, at least until it's over and wrestling promotions do not end. But, I'll continue to cover it because that's what I've done the last couple of years. The pay-per-views have not been good. Always Ready, I don't really remember how Always Ready was, but NWA 74, I haven't seen Night 2 yet. Thank God I've not yet, subjected myself to sitting down and watching Trevor Murdoch versus Tyrus. No disrespect to Murdoch, but Tyrus is fucking terrible. Night 1 was not good. And what really stood out to me watching Night 1 was knowing there was a Night 2. They had an hour-long pre-show, and Night 1, from what I saw, was 3.5 hours long. For a company that is so low on the totem pole compared to WWE, AEW, Impact, what Ring of Honor is going to be, even MLW, the amount of talent that they have left in NWA, there are some good names there, don't get me wrong, but the roster is so thin on actual talent that to have a 2-night show that is about 5 hours each night like it's fucking Wrestle Kingdom, to me is ridiculous. There was some good stuff from what I saw in Night 1. I actually did like Camille versus Taya Valkyrie in the main event. I'm glad they got the main event slot. They didn't do Empower this year. I thought that was bullshit, but whatever. The fact that they had a 2-night card and the card was 3.5 hours long each night, the main cards, is fucking dumb, dude. I mean, they did a pay-per-view last year. What was it? When Our Shadows Fall. I know you watched it, John. We spoke about it after the fact. I talked about it here on the show. It was like a quick 2.5 hour show. And I know that was in the midst of the pandemic. They didn't have many people, if anyone, in the building for that show. It was a quick pay-per-view. Why do these big shows that they do have to be fucking 4 hours long, 2 nights? Last year it made sense because one was a women's show. The other one featured men on the card. That makes sense. Why would you have a 2-night card with all these random people, a lot of whom do not even work for the promotion? A lot of them were just one-offs. I thought it was cool they had Davey Richards on Night 2. I haven't seen the match yet, but I thought it was cool they had an MLW championship defended. They brought in a couple new names. Okay, but again, a 2-night show, 3.5 hours each one on each main card is just absolute overkill when the product isn't even really that good. When you have fucking Mike Knox and Bully Ray in a tables match, which wasn't terrible, but it certainly was not great. And then you have Tyrus and Trevor Murdoch as if it's Sunday Night Heat circa 2010, which I know the show wasn't around at that point, but you get my drift. Then that's just unnecessary. So, from what I saw, not good. I will finish the rest of it. My Night 1 review should be up today. My Night 2 review up on WrestleRant.com, written form obviously, should be up at some point tomorrow once I finish watching it. But from what I've seen so far, not good. Certainly not a positive turning point for the NWA. And I can only imagine how it's going to end after seeing what I've seen online about the ending of Night 2 with the Control Your Narrative guys. That sounds fucking... I haven't even gotten to that part yet, but it sounds terrible. Johnson, and I really wanted to support the product too. That's the thing. I want to make that clear real quickly. There's a lot of people there that I like. I like the people. I like the PR person. They're really cool. I actually interviewed Matt Cardona for NWA Always Ready earlier this year. I want to really like the show because I thought Power when it first started 3 years ago was great. The pandemic happened that fucked up all their momentum. And ever since they came back, it just hasn't been the same. And not only has it not been the same, it's just been fucking terrible, especially in recent months. The weekly shows are just completely inconsequential, and the pay-per-views are even worse. So that's their biggest problem right now. I just want to see them do better. Anyway, the second question from John was, so this weekend we've got Clash of the Castle, Worlds Collide, and All Out. What do you think will be the better show of the three and why? He sent this in before NXT last night where they added a bunch more matches, and man, the matches they added look great too. That Worlds Collide show looks great. I'm going to go off on a limb and say, I'm going to say probably All Out. I'm most hyped, honestly, for Clash of the Castle. I am more excited at this point, coming off what they did on Dynamite last week. If they did Punk and Moxley for the first time ever at All Out, I would probably say I'm more excited for that. I'm more excited for Clash, for Roman and Drew, and Gunther and Sheamus, than I am for anything at All Out. Though I do think with the way that AEW does their pay-per-views, I do think All Out will be the better show. The only AEW pay-per-view in the last year that I thought was just not a waste of time, but just not as good as their usual shows was Double or Nothing. Double or Nothing was a complete misfire to me. But I thought Revolution was great. I thought Forbidden Door was an excellent show, one of the best shows all year. The Ring of Honor show in July that I was there for, Death Before Dishonor, great show. And all these other shows they do are really, really good. Full Gear last year, All Out last year I was there for that. That was amazing. So their pay-per-views are usually top caliber. Double or Nothing was not. I'm hoping to get back to that caliber with All Out. I do think All Out overall will be the better show. But it's going to be a toss-up. Worlds Collide sounds like a great show on paper. And Clash sounds like a great show as well, specifically for the environment. But they're in Cardiff, All Out's in Chicago, two great crowds. I wish Worlds Collide was in the UK. I'm shocked it's not. I don't know why it's not. It has an NXT UK feel, and they're already in the UK anyway for Clash, so that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But regardless, I'm looking forward to all three shows. Which one do I think will be better? Probably All Out, but personally, I'm more excited for Clash. And Worlds Collide is shaping up to be a sexy show as well, so really no complaints on this end from a genuine wrestling fan. John's third question, Raquel is a 3-time tag team champion, twice in NXT, and Aaliyah is now a 1-time champ. Even if it's a short reign, is it too soon to write the women's tag titles off completely? Yeah, it's too soon just because we have yet to really see what Triple H is going to do with these belts. I don't know what the time frame is, though. I do agree. So far, not so good. The tournament was not great. I wouldn't go so far as to say it was terrible, as other people have. There were some decent matches, but, people getting hurt, the outcome of the finals not being what people wanted to see, and the match quality overall not being great, to me, tells me, regardless of who's in charge, they might be more important a bit under Triple H, a bit more than they were previously, but there's still just I don't know if it's the execution or the talent, because WWE has a lot of good female talent, but maybe it's more so because they don't have a lot of great female teams. The problem, I think, is when they first started doing the division about 3.5 years ago, no one was complaining, the match quality isn't good, because they had actual teams. And like Mandy Rose and Sonya worked well as a tag team. They had great chemistry. You had Bayley and Sasha, obviously amazing chemistry. The Iconics never did a lot for me, but they did work well together, and that was a genuine team. They had decent matches. The Riot Squad was another team at that point. So you had actual teams. The problem now is that you don't have actual teams. They're all thrown together teams, and they're not good teams. So maybe when they can get the division on track with actual teams, it'll be better. So far, I'm not convinced it will be better. I think it will be better than what they were doing previously. There's no doubt about that. The women's division before was completely a total and absolute afterthought. There's no way it can be worse than it was previously. Will it be great? I don't know. I still wish they would combine the women's tag titles on the main roster and in NXT. There's just no point to having 2 sets of tag titles when you can have 1 set of traveling if you have, I guess you don't have a traveling set of champions for the men across all 3 brands, just Raw and SmackDown, but there's a lot less female teams than there are male teams. Maybe not by a lot, but there are. So that's what I would do. But anyway, yeah, I wouldn't write it off quite yet. I would give it at least a couple of months, because I'm of the same mindset too. I'm not exactly excited about the belts being back. My mindset was, listen, if they're going to treat them properly and actually make them feel important and make the division feel important and build it around actual teams, then I'll be sold. So far, I'm not sold because so far what they've done has not been great. Io Sky and Dakota Kai were a slam dunk as the first champions. Raquel and Aaliyah are just not a great team. They have a good dynamic with Raquel being like the beast or whatever they call her, the badass, and Aaliyah was the bougie. The problem is that Aaliyah is fucking terrible. Yeah, Raquel is much better than Aaliyah. She can carry Aaliyah. Aaliyah should not be in the ring at all. The fact that Aaliyah is in a Raw main event is fucking embarrassing. She's not good. And she's not gotten any better in the last, 7 or 8 years since Breaking Ground? She's fucking terrible. So, again, it's not the worst team that could have won the tournament. And maybe we'll talk about this later, but it just was not ideal. Io Sky and Dakota Kai, they lost on a roll-up. Who cares if they're not legal? They lost. And they're not damaged goods by any means. Not everything is the best or the greatest. Not this person isn't. Not everyone has to be in the top of the world or in the mud. Not everyone has to be buried. They're not buried, but if they have the momentum, sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It might have been predictable for them to win, but who gives a fuck? They're the team with all the wins right now. They're the team with all the momentum. Why would you have them lose? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Raquel and Aaliyah as characters are incredibly fucking boring, and I don't care if the end game is Raquel turning on Aaliyah. You could have done that anyway without them winning the tag team titles. Maybe we'll see where they go and they change my mind and they prove me wrong and they have a very interesting feud with the returning Sasha Banks and Naomi starting next week. But even if they were to do that, Raquel and Aaliyah are not heels. So the idea of a feud between those two teams, unless they quickly take the belts off of Sasha or take them off of Raquel and Aaliyah and give them to Sasha and Naomi, then I ask you, what was the even point of doing a fucking tournament? Just have Sasha and Naomi come back and give them the belts back, because they never actually lost them. I don't know, man. The whole thing doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but like you said, we'll give it some time. I don't want to write it off quite yet. We'll give it a few months, see where they go with it. It will be better than it was previously. How good will it actually be to justify sticking, keeping the division around? Time will tell. It remains to be seen. I'll say that much. Q_com. What are your bracket predictions for Wrestle Showcase this weekend? Who's walking away with the belt? So coming up in Chicago this weekend, I will mention this. It's going to be the Hyatt Regency, Schaumburg, Illinois, on September 3rd, which is Saturday. I think it's before, after Clash. I don't remember exactly. I think it's before. I'm not exactly sure on that, but they're doing this really cool tournament. It's called the Wrestling Showcase. I think it's at WrestleFest. It's in Cardiff. Or no, I'm sorry, it's in Chicago. They're doing it. I'm a fucking idiot. They're doing it the same weekend as All Out. It's not in Cardiff at the WrestleFest show. That's in Cardiff. That's in like a convention. This is for All Out weekend in Chicago. So All Out's on Sunday. This is on Saturday in Schaumburg. Check it out if you're there. You could also watch it on Fight TV. I know the folks running it. They do a great job, so I thought I would give them a shout out here with some bracket predictions. And if you're in the area, you should probably check it out. At the very least, check it out on Fight TV, because this bracket looks really, really cool. So here's what the current bracket looks like. Matt Cardona or Brian Myers may face Tatanka. Now I say may because we're not really sure who's of the two going to face Tatanka. I think Tatanka was a last-minute replacement for Killer Cross, who went back to WWE. So he got pulled, and they put in Tatanka in his place. I'm thinking Cardona wrestles, assuming he's clear to compete, and he beats Tatanka. That's probably what I would do. I know Cardona just lost an upset match at NWA 74. Regardless, I still think he's advancing here. That's what I would do. Steve Macklin and Jacob Fatu. I'm going to have Fatu win. And also, too, Cardona interrupted Fatu's match at the Ric Flair's last match. Fatu faced Josh Alexander for the Impact title, and I got interrupted by Matt Cardona. So that would make sense if they blew that off here. So I think Fatu beats Macklin, Cardona beats Tatanka. On the right side of the bracket, you got Rich Swann versus Johnny Showcase, a.k.a. Johnny Nitro, a.k.a. John Morrison. Great, play on words there. Swann versus Showcase. I'm thinking Showcase wins. I like Rich Swann, but I think Johnny Showcase is winning that one. In the other bracket, you have a Rebellion rematch for the Impact World Championship from earlier this year. This is not for the Impact World title, but a rematch from their original Impact World Championship match from April. Josh Alexander and Moose, which should be great. I'm thinking Josh Alexander wins that one. I mean, he's the Impact champion, so the way I see this playing out, Josh Alexander beats Moose, faces Johnny Showcase, John Morrison, in the semifinals. Josh Alexander beats Johnny Showcase. And in the finals, you get Josh Alexander versus Jacob Fatu, rematch from Ric Flair's last match. Josh Alexander wins the whole thing. Because if he loses, I mean, I know a lot of these people are not an Impact, but, it would be weird if the Impact World Champion was in this, he lost, and whoever beats him does not get a title shot. So, I mean, that could be the case. We're already getting Josh Alexander versus Eddie Edwards at their Bound for Glory show. So it's not as if they're going to have Jacob Fatu beat Josh Alexander and then do the rematch there. That's just not going to happen. But it would have Josh Alexander winning the whole thing with Jacob Fatu beating Cardona in the semifinals and before losing to Josh Alexander ultimately. That's what I would do for the Wrestle Showcase this weekend. I look forward to watching it at some point over on Fight TV. Next question comes from @BossAntelope86. What are your thoughts on Triple H running creative so far? It's not been perfect, but it's been watchable so far. I would go so far as to say it's been very enjoyable. Maybe not amazing or absolutely must-see. No product is going to be perfect, but it is much more bearable. That is the least of it. Much more bearable than it was previously. Things make sense. They're featuring fresh faces. We're getting a lot of good matches. The storylines still need work. The build for the pay-per-view has been well done. I really don't have a lot of complaints. It's simple storytelling. Some shows are stronger than others. I did think Monday's Raw was probably one of the weaker ones since Triple H took over, but I still thought it was a good show with some good matches and great storytelling. So again, I can't really complain. But so far, I think it's been good. I've enjoyed the shows, Raw and SmackDown. SmackDown specifically was fucking terrible before Triple H took over. It's a much more bearable show, and I think Raw's the better brand right now, and it's been significantly more enjoyable. So 2 thumbs up. The honeymoon phase, when it ends, when will the product kind of shift? That remains to be seen. We had our first questionable Triple H booking decision on Monday when Raquel and Aaliyah won the tag team titles. So I haven't lost faith in Triple H by any means. We got to see where it goes. I'm still not sold on that. Triple H is not going to be a god booker. He will not do everything that we want to see. He will make a couple slip-ups here and there based on whatever he wants to do or whatever. It's not going to be perfect, as AEW is not perfect, and I still have my qualms with them as well. But yeah, I do think overall the shows have been much more bearable, and I've heard from people who do not currently watch week to week who have said the shows are much easier to watch and I'm much more inclined to watch than I was previously, which is great to see. As a wrestling fan, that makes me very happy. At Iwagu91, their first question was, do you think Gunther versus Sheamus will steal the show at Clash at the Castle? I do. I mean, it's hard to say that it won't, but Drew and Roman I do expect to be a great match. I do think of the two, Gunther and Sheamus could steal the show. Could it steal the weekend? Remains to be seen. We're getting Carmelo Hayes and Ricochet on Sunday at Worlds Collide, and a couple of the matches at All Out look to be great as well. So for this specific show, it could be the show stealer. It's hard to put it over Drew and Roman, but you know what? Fuck it, I will. Sheamus is amazing. Gunther is great as well. I think this is going to be a very fun, hard-hitting affair. The crowd's going to be into it, and I do think it'll steal the show on Saturday. His second question. Before the name of Sabin, Shelley, and Kushida were given the name of Time Machine on Impact, I was thinking of along the lines of Time-Splitting Machine Gun, while there were those thinking the Motor City Time Splitters. Holy shit, that's a fucking mouthful. So he was thinking of the name Time-Splitting Machine Gun, and others were thinking of Motor City Time Splitters. What do you think? No, I disagree. I think Time Machine is much less of a mouthful, and it makes sense. Time Splitters, Machine Gun, Motor City Machine Guns, Time Machine. It's not the most innovative name of all time, but I do think it's pretty fucking cool, and it sums up the two groups perfectly well. So my money is what they already decided on, that being Time Machine. At noob_n_co TV, their question was, fans are very interested in the potential feud between Asuka and Io Skye. Do you think this feud will be focused on Asuka's past with Io Skye? Hopefully this feud will change Asuka's character during this feud. Listen, noob, when I saw Io Skye and Asuka for the first time ever at that Springfield house show on Saturday, you were the first person I thought of. I knew you would love that match. But in all seriousness, I'm looking forward to that feud at some point. We may not get it next week, but at some point, absolutely, we will, one-on-one. The matches will be great. If what I saw on Saturday was any indication at a fucking house show, I do think their eventual matches on TV will be great. I know they're capable of even better together. And I'm hoping the same as well. I do think Asuka's character would really benefit from a serious change, showing that more serious side when that feud comes around, and it's not the goofy, oh, I got green mist coming out of my mouth. Like, the goofy Asuka is literally channel-changing material. I don't know if that's her idea, if that was Vince's idea. Just having her blurt Japanese and yell in Japanese is not effective at all. Just having her do what she did, I'm not saying she can't talk, but whatever she was doing originally on the main roster in an NXT was far more effective than whatever the fuck they're doing now. It's just terrible. But her in-ring skills have never been in doubt, and I do think an Asuka and Io Skye program at some point to put over Io Skye would be wonderful. At Iwagu91, back to them. Do you think MJF will return at All Out? No, you know what? At this point, I thought that originally maybe he will to kind of end the show on a high note. He could. I'm not saying he won't. My money is on him coming back at Grand Slam. Maybe they have him return it All Out, but he doesn't, speak until Grand Slam. That's also possible. I think it'd be a better and bigger reaction if he showed up on that show in New York. I know he's from Long Island. This is closer to, I'm not even sure where this arena is. I mean, I know it's near Mets Stadium. I was at a Mets game a couple of weeks ago, and I saw the Arthur Ashe Stadium, actually, right across the street. It's a different part of New York than where Long Island is. Let's put it that way. This crowd last year booed MJF, but if he were to come back for the first time in 3 or 4 months, they would absolutely cheer him. So I would save his return for that show to make it feel bigger. But if you wanted to have him come out at the end of the pay-per-view on Saturday, and end the show on a real cliffhanger, that would also be great. So I agree. That's what I would do as well. At E13A, their question was, do you think Skye and Kai will win the women's tag team titles soon and have a long reign, like how Triple H's formula in NXT was to occasionally give babyfaces a big win before the heels get a long title reign? Example: Gargano and Cole. Yeah, I do think Kai and Skye will be champions eventually. I mean, there's not many great choices anyway. Will they win the belt soon? Maybe, but it defeats the purpose. Their Gargano thing was different. It's not the same thing. The difference with Gargano and Cole is that Gargano needed that moment. Gargano was insanely over. He was awesome in that role, and they had to have him win that night. Aaliyah and Raquel just started teaming. They're not a good team. Aaliyah is fucking terrible. Having Aaliyah pin anyone on the caliber of Dakota Kai or Io Sky is just terrible. So that was a mistake. It's not remotely the same thing. I kind of get what I kind of understand what you're getting at. And Triple H may not see it that way as far as like, oh, he wants to give the baby faces a big win of the tournament. Io Sky and Dakota Kai will win it. But then if you do that, Naomi and Sasha will probably be back soon. Are you going to change the titles 3 times from Aaliyah and Raquel to Dakota and Io and then Sasha and Naomi, who are definitely getting those belts back? I don't know if I would do that. So I'm not saying Dakota Kai and Io Sky shouldn't win it. I just don't know if I would do it next week. Because if they did it like anytime soon, then what the fuck was the point of Aaliyah and Raquel winning that tournament? I mean, that would just be even more. That would be even more ridiculous to me. Their second question: have you heard about Eddie Kingston's fight with Sammy Guevara and the claims that people in AEW do not want to work with Sammy Guevara anymore? I alluded to this earlier, the whole backstage heat shit with a lot of other people, including Eddie and Sammy. I read the whole situation from Eddie's side, from Sammy's side. It's quite ridiculous it even got to that point. Sammy just seems like a douche. He just seems like a douche. I've met the guy. He's a nice guy, but just lately, what he's been doing on TV has been fucking awful. I don't know if that's 100% correct that people do not want to work with him, but that feud with Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page was not good. Sky's not even on the show anymore. Ethan Page is barely on the show. And the Ty Mello and Sammy on-air partnership is just unbearable. Not even in a good heel way. They are just unfucking bearable. So I can believe it. I don't know if I 100% take that as fact, but I could believe that being the case. So that whole thing was a fascinating situation to say the least. And last question from @E138. What's going to happen at WWE Worlds Collide, Clash of the Castle, and All Out? I mean, that's a loaded question, and there's 3 shows this weekend. How about this? Listen to WrestleRant Radio on Thursday for my full predictions along with Mr. Marceau for Clash of the Castle, Worlds Collide, and All Out. I'm not going in here on what I expect to happen at 3 loaded shows. I'd be here for another hour. But you can check out my full predictions for all 3 events on WrestleRant Radio on Thursday and in written form on various websites that I share on social media. So I'm going to give you a non-answer there because I have no fucking clue exactly what's going to happen, and that would take me an hour to answer. But what I can expect to happen is great wrestling across all 3 shows. Great wrestling, great moments, great action, great storytelling, whatever. I do expect all 3 shows to be very, very entertaining. Obviously, one of them might be stronger than the others, but we can't really complain about getting a weekend of wrestling this great. I mean, between all 3 shows, to get 2 in the same weekend would be awesome. The fact that we're getting 3, as a content provider, as a content creator, writer, whatever, it's going to be a fucking nightmare covering all this stuff. But as a wrestling fan, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch across on Saturday and Sunday. So I can't complain. I expect a lot of entertainment between the 2 days, and I look forward to breaking it down here next week on #AskGSM on WrestleRant Radio and all the usual platforms. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. You can find me on Twitter as well, Facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section in this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Thank you guys for checking out episode 457 here today of #AskGSM. Stay tuned for another exclusive interview coming on Friday with Drew McIntyre, the #1 contender to the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship. We recorded it at a house show, as they mentioned earlier, with in Springfield with Drew in person over video. So you get the full video interview. It's a lengthy interview, myself and Drew. The lights go out at one point. You think the Fiend's going to appear. But yeah, it's a very fun show. You can check it out this Friday here on the channel. You're not going to want to miss it. And an article form as well over on BleacherReport.com. Have a great weekend, guys. Enjoy what we have left of the summer today and the rest of the week. Have a great Labor Day as well if you're here in the States. If not, just have a great weekend. I'm GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.